For those that might have missed the Zoom tutorial today on grids and reviewing our final assignment, this video is just kind of doing a quick review. So I'm not going to bother going through the lecture, as you guys can most certainly go online, and I strongly advise you reviewing both of these lectures. The newsletter one, obviously, to get some notes in regards to what a newsletter really is and the intention of this project, but also very much the grids lecture as well, as there's a lot of helpful tips and references in there as well. So I'm just going to be working off of the samples I provided, but I'm just going to go ahead and set our files up so you guys can see them. So file, new document. So again, our document, we are creating a 4-page document with 2 facing pages. So I have a 4-page document, facing pages. I'm just going to leave my margins at 1/2 inch. If you prefer to have a wider margin, please feel free to go ahead and do so. I'm going to leave columns and gutter as is because we're going to go and adjust those. And my bleed, of course, always having a bleed, it's noted on the brief. And I'm going to just press create. So to kick things off, so now we have 4 pages set up like this, but we do need to make sure that we have 2 pages next to each other. We did review this in class at one point with our back to basics, but I'll just review it again here as to how the pages flow out. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. But because we want to set these up as 2 facing pages, we're going to right click, allow pages to shuffle. I'm just going to take that 4th page and I'm going to drag it up here. So now I currently have 2 facing pages. So this page right here is my cover. I'm just going to go ahead and grab all the content from here so I can pop that in there. So this is our cover. This is page 2. This is page 3. And up here is page 4. So when you look at the assets on eLearn, everything is in there for your cover, page 2, page 3, and page 4. So please do your best to lay everything out that way. And this is the flow of your pages. So first and foremost, to set up our grids. So we do want to set our grids up on our master pages, as if we're just on this page, say for instance, just this page highlighted, my margins and my columns will only be applied to this specific page. If I highlight both of those, then they'll be applied to both of those pages. So from our master is where we're going to make sure we do, and again, I want to make sure I highlight both, so my edits will apply to both of those pages. So I'm going to go layout, margins, keeping my margins as is, but our columns is where we want it to be at. Keeping preview on, this is where we're going to up our number. I do suggest probably at least 6. Anything too intricate like this is probably quite intense, and maybe a little too open for the purpose of trying to really kind of work with the grid. But again, it's up to you guys to decide what works best for you. So I'm just going to work with, let's just say 8. It's a pretty hefty grid. We'll see how this looks when I open up my gutter. I do like to have a wider gutter, so it does give our columns a little more breathing space. So that's looking a bit tight, so I'm going to drop that down to 7. Pressing OK. So now I've got my pages set up with my columns. So another thing that we do want to make sure we do is we want to make sure that we have our page numbers set up in our master pages. So using our text tool, creating a text box, type, insert character, markers, and I'm going to say current page number. Making sure that you apply your style to that. So I'm just going to go with my basic Gotham bold. And perhaps we'll put that somewhere in here. Anyways, this making sure that's applied to both pages. And here we go. Something that I did not set up in the Zoom meeting today that I did want to review. So we do want to make sure we set our page numbers up in our master pages. The issue doing this is now this is labeled as page 1, but this should be page 4. This is my cover, which should be here, etc. So I want to make sure, I want to go ahead and I want to change the number of this page. So I'm going to highlight here and I'm going to right click. Numbering and section. I'm going to start this as page number 1. Pressing OK. I'm going to right click here and I'm going to number and section. I'm going to call this page number 4. And there we go. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes it's nice to not have a page number on our master page, so you can go ahead and you can apply this. The problem with doing that, oh, just kidding, no, I thought our grid was going to disappear, but it's still there. So just applying the none on there, so this way our master page is removed from there, or you can also press Command Shift, highlight, and then delete, and then your master page elements are still on there. Another note that I do want to review with our page numbers, again, I know we did go over this at one point, but just as a reminder, your page number should always be on your top layer. So we're going to go ahead and call this page numbers. So now everything for my page number is on the top. So if I put any elements, when I add a new layer, document, so I'm going to just lock that page number. So now when I do anything on here, I'm always going to be, it's always going to be underneath my page number. So just for instance, if I decide to say, oops, oh shoot, I forgot all my elements here. And lock that up. And let's just take these out of here so we can delete them at some point too. There we go. So back at it. So if I do want to go ahead and have a picture that bleeds off of my page number is still there because it's sitting on a layer below my actual automated page number. So just going in and starting to review how we can start to flow our text in there. Just going to grab my heading as that got removed. So for instance, this would be, just because this is one kind of cohesive article, this wouldn't be the cover. I'm also, side note, working on my baseline grid, or working with my baseline grid. So as a side note that when you select your type, when you have this on, that's going to be adhering to your baseline grid. When it goes here, it's just going to adhere exactly to what you've manually set that as. You guys can work with this if you would like, as it might be valuable practice for you. But you could also, if it's maybe a bit too much to handle while we're still trying to work with our column grid, feel free to shut that off, and I'll just circle back to that in a moment. Okay, so working with our grid. So I have a pretty intricate grid here, which means I have a lot of availability to place